Get Korea right.
한국을 대표하는 먹거리 하면 뭐가 먼저 떠오르시나요?
김치입니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 베트남에서 온 옥안입니다. 김치는 한국인의 밥상에 빠지지 않고 올라오는 먹거리인데요. 그런데 가끔 김치에 대해 잘못 알고 있는 분들이 있더라고요. 그래서 제가 오늘 김치에 대한 바른 정보를 알려드리려고 해요. 김치는 한국의 전통 발효 식품인데요. 한국에서 가장 많이 접하는 김치는 배추김치예요. 고춧가루, 마늘, 젓갈 등 다양한 양념을 넣어 버무려 발효시키면 맛있는 김치가 탄생합니다.
와, 맛있겠다. 선생님, 김치 종류가 엄청나게 많다고 들었어요.
네.
어떤 게나 있어요?
김치는 배추김치를 한국 사람들은 제일 많이 먹긴 해요. 뭐 깍두기, 총각김치, 무로 만든 김치가 있고 갓김치, 파김치, 부추김치, 그리고 오이소박이, 열무김치 이런 식으로 모든 채소가 다 김치를 담글 수가 있어요. 김치의 세계는 무궁무진해요. 그래서 김치의 맛은 전국에 어머니 숫자만큼 있었어요. 집집마다 맛이 다 달랐기 때문에 김치가 맵기만 한 줄 알지만 꼭 그렇지 않아요. 고춧가루 들어가지 않은 백김치도 있고요. 물김치도 있고 과일김치도 있어요. 그리고 요즘은 해외에서 김치를 많이 찾고 있어요. 먹어보고 간 좀 봐요.
너무 맛있어요.
네, 맛있어요.
한국 바로 알리기 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
Curious about what's special about K content?
In recent years, Korean cultural content has taken the world by storm.
So, what's your favorite K content? Movies, dramas, music, exhibitions?
Are you ready to take your pick?
Starting with globally acclaimed K movies. It's no longer rare for Korean movies to receive awards at international film festivals. And we can't talk enough about the K-drama sensation.
It's not surprising that drama filming sites go on to become major tourist attractions.
When we are on the topic of K-pop, we can't leave out idol groups. They are the driving force of K-pop.
K-pop idol group members do not only have exceptional singing and dancing skills, but they have the looks too. I'm a huge fan.
I really like Korean underground music. These days, talented K-indie bands are recognized overseas as well.
Oh, and Korea also has a lot of music festivals. You can meet musicians of all genres at these events.
Exhibitions happen in Korea all year round.
I also enjoy going to the theatre. There's no shortage of musicals, plays, and performances to choose from. So keep an eye on the theatre scene.
Then there is K-design, blending traditional and modern elements.
K-fashion, leading trends.
K-beauty, which takes beauty to the next level.
K-content, receiving praise the world over. Watch it, experience it, and enjoy it.
headlines on this Wednesday, December 10th, here in South Korea. President Jae-myung chairs a meeting with his ministers and industry insiders to explore ways to strengthen South Korea's global semiconductor leadership. And South Korea inks a preliminary agreement with Peru for battle tanks and armored vehicles in its largest defense deal with a Latin American country. Also, South Korea is selected to host the United Nations Ocean Conference in the year 2028, while its co-host Chile hosts the preliminary high-level meeting in 2027.
President Jae-myung presided over a semiconductor strategy meeting earlier on this Wednesday afternoon with his ministers and industry insiders amid plans to strengthen South Korea's global presence. Our correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
With what's seen as high-tech changing at breakneck speed, President Lee Jae-myung says the semiconductor industry is the way forward for South Korea.
어쨌든 대한민국도 잠깐의 혼란을 벗어나서 이제 새롭게 도약해야 되는데 산업 경제 발전이 그 핵심이라고 생각이 되고 그중에서도 반도체 분야가 아무래도 우리가 매우 경쟁력을 가지는 전망 있는 영역으로 생각됩니다.
At a time when the fight for semiconductor supremacy is being described as a war between countries, President Lee chaired a meeting with ministers and industry insiders on Wednesday to discuss ways to boost South Korea's competitiveness. Lee stressed the need to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem.
전 무방 산업들도 그렇고 지금 주로 논의되는 소위 소부장, 소재 부품 장비 분야는 해외 의존도가 매우 높다는 얘기들도 있고.
Although South Korea is a global leader in chip manufacturing, it trails competitors such as Japan and the US when it comes to materials, components, and equipment technology and production. To address this, the government plans to provide expanded fiscal and financial support for semiconductor materials and component suppliers. It will also launch the Trinity Fab, an evaluation to mass production chip fabrication plant in Yongin City, Gyeonggi-do Province, by 2027. Another major initiative is expanding semiconductor infrastructure beyond the capital region.
For stable growth and a strong supply chain, we can no longer concentrate the semiconductor industry only in the capital region.
The Industry Ministry plans to establish what it calls the Southern Semiconductor Belt, connecting the cities of Gwangju, Busan, and Gumi. Gwangju will serve as a hub for advanced packaging, Busan for power semiconductor production, and Gumi for materials and components. The question now is whether what was discussed this time will be enough to propel South Korea into the Lee administration's goal of the world's top two semiconductor powers. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
On the labor front, employment expanded in November on year but remains visibly divided depending on age and industry. Our economic correspondent Park Chun-han has the latest numbers.
South Korea added 225,000 jobs in November compared to the same month last year. This marks the second consecutive month of job growth hovering around the 200,000 mark. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday, the total number of employed people stood at 29,046,000 last month. The increase was driven by health and social welfare services, which added 281,000 jobs. However, key industries continue to show weakness, with employment in the manufacturing sector falling by 41,000 and construction down by 131,000, marking 17 and 19 consecutive months of job losses, respectively. While the overall employment rate has risen by 0.2 percentage points year-on-year, which is the highest rate for any November, the employment rate for those aged 15 to 29 dipped by 1.2 percentage points in the same period, losing 177,000 jobs.
It appears that the recent shift toward experienced hires and occasional recruitment is making it harder for young people to find jobs. Many workplaces where young people work are concentrated in industries like accommodation, food services, and manufacturing, and the difficulties facing these sectors also seem to be affecting the amount of young people's employment.
Economically inactive individuals taking time off to rest reached just over 2.54 million in November, up 124,000 from a year earlier and marking the largest level ever recorded for that month. Especially the economically inactive population in their 30s also rose to 314,000, the highest November figure on record. A government official explained that the number of people who were previously classified under childcare or household duties has decreased, and more are now being counted as those taking time off to rest. This shift is contributing to the rise in this category among the economically inactive individuals. 박준환, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the defense front, South Korea has inked a preliminary deal for the sale of military land vehicles to Peru, signaling a significant inroad into the Latin American market. Our Pyongyang has details.
South Korea is poised to make a significant breakthrough in the Latin American defense market after Peru agreed to procure nearly 200 units of Korean-made ground vehicles. According to the presidential office, the Peruvian army will receive 54 K2 main battle tanks and 141 wheeled armored vehicles under a comprehensive agreement signed with Korean defense firms and Peru's state-run enterprise. While final contract negotiations are still underway, officials say the deal is expected to become the largest Korean defense export to Latin America and the first entry of the K2 tank into the region. The K2 has already strengthened its international standing through multi-billion-dollar supply contracts with Poland and performance demonstrations across Europe. National security officials say the Peru deal represents a pivotal step towards expanding Seoul's global defense footprint.
K-Defense is laying the foundation to become one of the world's top 4 global defense powers. We are launching a presidential-level control tower to drive these efforts forward.
President Lee Jae-myung welcomed the development, expressing hope that the agreement will elevate bilateral defense cooperation and lead to a sustainable, mutually beneficial partnership. If the export proceeds smoothly, Seoul expects the deal to serve as a foothold for expanding Korean defense exports across the wider Latin American market. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
On the international front, U.S. President Donald Trump says his report card on the American economy stands at well above A+. Our Isingja covers his remarks.
U.S. President Donald Trump has given the U.S. economy under his second administration what he calls an A+++++ grade as he prepares for a trip to Pennsylvania to highlight his efforts to bring down inflation. The comments came during an interview with Politico on Monday, where Trump defended his record on prices and pushed back against concerns from some supporters who believe the cost of goods remains too high. Trump argued that he inherited what he described as a total mess, claiming prices were already at historic highs when he took office. He insisted that costs are now easing, pointing specifically to energy prices. Trump won the election on promises to bring relief to households struggling with rising expenses, yet his administration has faced ongoing frustration from Americans who say that many prices remain elevated. Trump has blamed the Biden administration for the high costs and has dismissed Democratic arguments on affordability as a hoax and a con job. Trump has attempted to curb prices in part by removing tariffs on a range of products in recent months, a move officials say is aimed at lowering costs for consumers. The comments also come as the U.S. Fed is set to make its last rate decision of 2025. As Trump travels to Pennsylvania, the White House is expected to continue framing inflation and affordability as top priorities, even as public opinion shows divided views on the pace of improvement. 이승재, Arirang News.
South Korea is scheduled to host the main event of the United Nations Ocean Conference in the year 2028. The multilateral meeting seeks to advance the sustainable use of oceans, seas and marine resources. Our Ian Jin reports.
The UN General Assembly on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved a resolution officially designating South Korea and Chile as co-hosts of the 4th UN Ocean Conference. With no abstentions, there were 169 votes supporting the resolution and 2 against, the United States and Argentina. The triannual meeting is hosted by 1 developed country and 1 developing country, which means Korea will host the main event in June 2028 and Chile a high-level preparatory meeting in 2027. This conference concentrates on advancing Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is the UN's Life Below Water goal, focused on conserving and sustainably using oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. The South Korean Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries plans to select the host city through a public bid open to local governments in the first half of next year. But even before Korea was confirmed as the host of the event, Busan had already expressed strong interest and been actively pursuing a bid to be the host city. During a plenary session on Monday, Oceans Minister Chun Jae-soo said that the 2028 conference will be a defining moment for all stakeholders to come together for a more effective collaboration and concrete action plan, making it a crucial milestone just 2 years before the 2030 target year for SDG 14. The third UNOC was held in Nice, France, from June 9th to 13th this year, co-hosted by France and Costa Rica, drawing some 15,000 participants, including 55 top-level officials from around the world. 이은진, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung hosted a group of foreign ministers from the Pacific Islands at his office earlier today as part of efforts to promote partnership on minerals and energy. Some 15 officials from the region, including the Marshall Islands, Papua New Guinea and Tonga, are in Seoul for a Korea-Pacific Islands foreign ministers meeting. During his interaction with the top diplomats, the president highlighted South Korea's continued contribution to the region through ODA projects and added that South Korea will proactively respond to the shared threat of climate crisis. Also, South Korea has lodged a protest with China and Russia against the unannounced entry of their warplanes into Korea's air defense identification zone. The Defense Ministry summoned military attaches from both nations earlier on this Wednesday morning to object the incident. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 7 Russian and 2 Chinese military aircraft entered the zone over the East and South Seas on Tuesday. While territorial airspace was not violated, the jets failed to share prior notice before entering the area, as is the custom. Seoul's military says it will continue to respond firmly to such incidents in accordance with international law. The Pyongyang International Marathon takes place on April 5th next year, and all 500 spots reportedly sold out in fewer than 5 hours after sales began. Now, this is according to Beijing-based Korea Tours, the marathon's official travel partner in charge of foreign participants. The agency is seeking to secure more slots and has asked potential participants to join a waiting list. The marathon begins and ends inside the Kim Il-sung Stadium in Pyongyang. In fact, the event began back in 1981 to mark the birthday of the regime's founder, Kim Il-sung. The travel agency adds holders of South Korean, US, Malaysian and Japanese passports are not permitted to partake in the event. From speech contests to roundtable discussions on shared concerns, the youth of South Korea and neighboring Japan are working to maintain the momentum of bilateral ties as the two countries mark 60 years of diplomatic relations this year. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young takes a look.
25-year-old Hiyori Morisawa initially came to Seoul for a short exchange program, but ended up enrolling in a Korean university, withdrawing from her undergraduate studies in Japan.
While learning the language, I gained a deeper understanding of Korean culture. The concept of jong, an enduring sense of emotional connection. That experience made me feel closer to Korea and love it more.
She was one of the participants at the 21st Korea-Japan Speech Contest organized by the Japanese Embassy in Seoul. For 2 decades, people of all age groups have delivered talks on subjects close to their hearts in each other's language, showing how interpersonal connections have withstood political swings in bilateral relations. 16-year-old Bae Jin-woo says his relationship with Japan grew due to his love of ice hockey.
I used to play ice hockey, and seeing Korean and Japanese teams compete together showed me differences in culture and style, and how sport can serve as a bridge between the two countries.
A separate youth roundtable inspires cooperation and unity among young Koreans and Japanese against major challenges facing their generation. Part of Japan's Genesis program that promotes understanding among young people in the Asia-Pacific, The most recent virtual session focused on disaster preparedness.
This discussion aims to explore how both countries can respond to natural hazards such as earthquakes and flooding, risks that can occur not only in Japan and Korea, but anywhere in the world. The topic was also deemed a shared priority when then Prime Minister Ishiba and President Lee Jae-myung met in September. Both sides agreed to strengthen cooperation and pursue joint preparedness efforts.
Participants shared how both countries respond during major emergencies.
I experienced the 2016 Gyeongju earthquake while I was studying in the library one evening, and I had to rush home. Earthquakes are far more frequent in Japan, which is why preparedness is essential. I wanted to compare how disaster readiness is approached in Korea and how response systems are structured in Japan.
Confronting shared challenges through dialogue beyond leader and government level, civilian exchanges are creating common ground over traditional sticking points and perceptions. This coming significantly in the 60th year of normalizing relations between Korea and Japan.
Communications in the private sector have rapidly increased within the few years, and these days Japanese cinema is a blast in Korea, and also I believe that a Korean-Japanese director has made this amazing movie in Japan, which has also been a hit. And also this could be a very fun story, but I heard that these days dating apps are even connecting Japanese people and Korean people within the private sector. Despite having political differences, despite having historical disputes, I believe that in the future, especially the younger generation, have a very optimistic future ahead of us.
While shuttle diplomacy strengthens top-level engagement, these people-to-people encounters are fortifying the foundation of future-oriented relations across all generations in Korea and Japan. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the artwork of Catholic priest Kim In-jung is on display here in Seoul this month, highlighting his distinct style of stained glass art. Our culture correspondent Park Eun-woo has a glimpse.
Vividly colored paint on glass that seems to tell a story or a poem. This is how Catholic priest and artist Kim In-jung has worked for decades, using oil pigments and brushes to create colors as radiant and transparent as light itself. His pieces look slightly different from traditional stained glass that's typically assembled by joining small pieces of colored glass together with lead. Two special exhibitions, Poetry of Light and Light for Life, now running through this Christmas in two separate museums in Seoul, offer rare opportunities to appreciate Kim's work close up, including several being shown for the first time. A notable fact is that all the artwork on display is deliberately left untitled for a good reason. Behind me are Kim's latest artworks, which are also left intentionally untitled, allowing each viewer to step in with no preconceptions, just a pure personal encounter with the light and color before them.
I've been going through a dark period, feeling trapped. So I was finding a way to release some of that pressure, and this exhibition helped me out. It reminded me of a crane taking flight, so if I could name the piece, I'd call it Rise.
Although Kim is well known for his works on glass, his artistic practice extends to a variety of media, including canvas. And one remarkable characteristic of his work is the fusion of East and West.
European audiences say his art feels completely different from typical abstract or figurative works. The empty spaces reflect what influenced him since childhood, and he often uses thick calligraphy brushes along with vivid Western-style colors. These elements give his art a truly unique texture.
Kim's works throughout the years have been installed in around 50 cathedrals across Europe, including Chartres Cathedral. Now at 85 years old and living with hearing loss, he continues to work passionately, currently in France and Korea, showing no signs of slowing down. Though his pieces remain untitled, the emotions and reflections they evoke continue to illuminate those who stand before them, and perhaps that in the end is the very title he intended. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In Europe, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has again ruled out giving up any territory to Russia, saying he has, quote, no legal or moral right to do so. His comments on Monday came as Ukraine prepares to send a revised peace plan to the White House after weekend talks between U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators produced no agreement. Zelensky met UK, French, and German leaders in London in what was widely viewed as a show of support amid concerns that Washington may back a deal requiring major concessions. He said Kiev's updated proposal could be submitted as early as Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russia claims new gains along the Eastern Front, which Ukraine disputes. In The Hague on Tuesday, the International Criminal Court sentenced a Sudanese militia leader to 20 years in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Sudan's Darfur region more than 20 years ago. Ali Muhammad Ali Abd al-Laman, also known as Ali Kushay, was convicted in October on 27 counts, including murder, torture, and orchestrating rape, with judges saying he personally beat detainees to death with an axe. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence, while the defense argued the 76-year-old was misidentified. The ruling concludes the ICC's first trial on the Darfur conflict, which began after militias known as the Janjaweed were mobilized to crush a 2003 rebellion. In Indonesia, a fire in an office building in Jakarta on Tuesday afternoon killed at least 22 people. Authorities say the blaze began on the first floor of the 7th-floor building after a battery exploded inside a drone company's workspace, sending flames and thick smoke upward. Most victims were women, including one pregnant woman, and police believe they died from smoke inhalation. Firefighters used aerial ladders to rescue trapped workers. In Australia, a social media ban for under-16s has come into effect. The ban blocks under-16s from accessing 10 major platforms, including Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. It took effect at midnight local time on Wednesday. Companies now face fines of $33 million if they fail to remove under-16 accounts. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the law is needed to protect children from predatory algorithms, but tech firms warn it may push teens to unregulated spaces. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
You'll want to be ready for unpredictable weather this week. This morning started off cold, but temperatures climbed to around 10 degrees Celsius this afternoon, making it milder than usual for this time of year. Tomorrow will also be milder than average with no major cold spell. Early tomorrow morning, rain will begin in the center areas and the Jeollado provinces, then spread across the country. Most areas will also see about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province with low temperatures will see heavy snow of more than 10 centimeters. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 6 degrees, Daegu at 4 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 8 degrees in Seoul and Gyeongju, 10 degrees in Chuncheon. After the rain spread nationwide, temperatures will drop sharply on Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us and thank you for now.
해금은 두 줄로 된 한 악기인데 저도 처음에 시작하게 된 거는 그 두 줄에서 너무 다양한 소리가 나오는 게 너무 신기했고 일단 해금이 되게 사람의 목소리랑 좀 비슷하다고 많이들 하세요. 줄을 눌러서 이렇게 음을 계속 왔다 갔다 진동하는 그런 형태를 띠고 있다 보니까 애절하다라고 많이 말씀을 해주시는 것 같아요. 이 곡은 제가 좀 오래 좋아했던 친구에 대한 제 여러 감정을 담은 곡인데요. 슬펐던 마음 혹은 뭐 고마웠던 마음 이런 여러 가지 감정들을 한데 묶어서 마음이 담긴 곡이라고 할 수 있습니다. 현대적인 음악으로 이제 재구성하는 단계를 거칠 때 항상 중요하게 생각하는 거는 음악의 분위기를 해치지 않는 선에서는 전통적인 주법들, 식임새 이런 전통의 냄새라고 할까요? 맛? 이런 걸 살릴 수 있는 요소들을 좀 집어넣으려고 하는 편이에요. 저는 요새 연주하면서도 스스로가 마음도 편하고 몸도 편안한 음악들을 좀 자주 들려드리고 싶다. 제가 음악으로 위로받았던 것처럼 제가 하는 음악들로 여러분들이 좀 위로받을 수 있는 순간이 있었으면 좋겠다. 그런 무대를 만들려고 노력해야겠다라는 생각을 했던 것 같습니다.
South Korea and its global partners are keeping their eyes on Australia as authorities there put in place the world's first ban on social media for users under the age of 16. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Press Perspective for December 10th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. It's official. Australia's ban on social media platforms for children and teenagers under the age of 16 has gone into effect as of today. For more on the world's first such ban, I have Stephen Borwick with Japanese weekly news magazine Nikkei Asia here in the studio. Stephen, it's great to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
I also have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 with us. Chloe, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Right, Stephen, let's begin with the social ban by the Australian government. How will it work and why is it there?
Well, first, I mean, the basics of how it will work are, of course, you can't ban children entirely from accessing social media or the internet, but basically how it works is that children are not supposed to be able to set up new accounts, and accounts that they already have will be disabled. I think there might be some kinks in getting this to work. There was one Australian media outlet who just reported today, the Australian Financial Review said that some of their reporters had kind of found ways around it. So we'll see just exactly how well it's executed. But the reason for it is that there was one government official who was quoted by saying this will allow more kids to have time to learn an instrument or a language or walk their dog or master a torpedo punt or the perfect lob pass. Torpedo punt might be something from Aussie Rules football or another kind of locally specific game that I'm not aware of. But I think the bigger objective here is to protect kids from, I think there's two things. One is just there's concern over just harmful misinformation being online. There's things that are misleading or that are just explicit or potentially dangerous. There are online predators. There's violent or suggestive things that kids should just not be exposed to. And the other one is just I think it's protecting young and still developing brains from just the speed and the dopamine effects that can come with being online, constantly being exposed to things that are, in some way exciting or intriguing or kind of wanting to allow kids to have some space to let their brains more fully form and, probably spend, as that government official laid out, spend time on some slower paced and potentially more rewarding kind of long-term activities. So we'll see how it goes. It's obviously in the very early stages, but it's an innovative and a quite ambitious move by the Australian government.
Right, and before we delve any deeper, Stephen, for the sake of clarity, could you tell us a bit about the platforms that are currently off limits to those under 16 in Australia? I believe there are 10 platforms?
Yeah, and so the way that the government defines social media platforms is what is subject to this are platforms where users post things that other users can see, and then they can interact on this kind of shared online space. So this applies to TikTok, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Threads, and I think there might be a few others, but something like WhatsApp, for example, is not subject to it because it's something that exists purely for the purposes of messaging. So, and also online games are something that's not subject to it. So, yeah, the idea is, I think some of the people who were pushing for this bill were parents whose children suffered some kind of adverse effect that they attributed to information that they encountered on social media. And my Nikkei Asia colleague in Sydney interviewed the father of one young girl who died by suicide at the age of, I believe she was 15. And he attributed a drastic worsening of her mental and physical state by misinformation that she encountered online. Apparently she came across pages and she came across testimonials from people who would say that it was possible to live on only 200 calories per day or something like that. And she thought that by following this advice, she was going to lose weight. And she ended up tragically dying. And so in a quite emotive interview that my colleague did with this gentleman, the point that he made was, when you're 13 years old, you're just very impressionable, and it's hard to make sense of the world when you have so many different things coming at you all the time on social media. And he argued that it was imperative for authorities in Australia to give kids, to cut kids off from this kind of influence and to allow them space to be kids. That's something that a number of Australian authorities have said, that the idea here is to allow kids to enjoy a more kind of conventional childhood and to not be seeking to participate in kind of more mature, more adult spheres at such a young age.
Right, and staying with what Stephen mentioned earlier about how this campaign or this ban began, Chloe, the Australian media has touched upon the story of one mother whose story of grief, of course, is believed to have launched this campaign for such a ban. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So she's been kind of all over the media in Australia especially, but also over the world. So her name is Emma Mason, and her daughter Tilly, who was 15 years old, killed herself in 2022 after relentless online bullying through social medias. So of course, again, we're speaking about subject like self-harm, and we are speaking about those kids. I'd like to remember once again to our viewers that if anyone is in a difficult situation like this, there's always helpline all over the country, nationally in all the different countries. So it's always possible to find those numbers and call if there is any need for help or even just to have a discussion. But so to come back to this subject of Emma's testimony about her daughter. She's been advocating for the social media ban, and she has shared a story with media, but also with world leaders. She was at the United Nations General Assembly recently, so she was on one of the sidelines project, but still she was there to deliver a message to the world. And what she's saying is, as Stephen was explaining, is protecting children from social media. So their motto was, let them be children. So let them be kids, sorry. So what she was saying, and she's been documenting it quite well, that's something we already knew, but she's been showing it through scientific methods as well, is that since the introduction of social medias around 2011, we've seen a very sharp increase in childhood problems such as eating disorders. So that's what we were seeing with what Stephen was speaking about, the Nikkei testimony, but also self-harm, other problem about bullying, online bullying, which are way stronger than the offline bullying. And so she has been advocating for the ban with other parents, and especially through the research that they have done, they are the ones who say that it should be 16 years old and not younger for the ban, because at first the discussion was, well, either to put a ban or not, but also at what age should we consider the kids mature enough to be able to be on social media? Should it be 14, 15, 16? And what she was explaining to some of the Australian media is she, through the different time of testimonies that she had, she ended up in a private dinner with the current Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese. And what she said is she realized at that point when they were discussing and when she was advocating for the 16-year limit, she said that she actually realized that they were talking about the details of the ban and not if a ban should be put in place. And she said that's the moment she felt probably that her campaign was going on and was bearing fruits and that it was going to happen. And so that's kind of the idea today, is that she's really shown as one of the main figures who has been able, with other parents, to regroup together and to really share through their, obviously, their sadness and their very tragic stories for the kids. They've been able to share something and to try and protect, in a way, other kids.
Right, so the reasons behind this ban are quite clear. Stephen, what has been the public response to Australia's ban? Let's start off with the children, their parents, as well as a number of commentators.
First, I would point to a poll that was published last year that showed that it was about 77% of the Australian public was in favor of this. Children, I'm sure, have some misgivings because no child likes to be told that they can't do something. No child, I think specifically, children don't like being told that something that everybody who's older than them has access to this thing, but because you are just a kid, you can't have that. I'm sure that leaves a bad taste in a lot of children's mouths. Also, just because for those who have already gotten into the habit of using social media, who have made friends on social media, and who are just used to the velocity of social media, like telling a kid whose evenings have been filled for a long time with Instagram Reels or TikTok Reels, that now what they're going to have to do instead is read a book or watch a movie or go out and play with other kids. You know, they're not going to like that. They're not going to be accustomed to that, and that would take some kind of adjustment. But as for the arguments in opposition to this, you know, again, my colleagues in Sydney have been reporting on this, and they've quoted some experts who argued that, you know, there's a few threads in opposition to this. One is that this will do what other bans throughout history have done and drive users from a legal and a regulated way of engaging with something to an illegal or a unregulated, or kind of pushing children into the darker corners of the internet. The internet has a tendency to be, I think Bill Clinton once said that, trying to regulate the internet is like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. I mean, perhaps, presumably, young people who want to meet each other online or who want to liaise in some way online will continue to do that, and maybe they will, find ways of taking a messaging app like WhatsApp and kind of making it work more as social media once did. But I think, the other thing, though, the other kind of line of opposition that I wanted to mention was I read one expert who was quoted as saying that this social media is the way that children kind of learn about how a society works, and it's how they express themselves in a democratic system. They can't vote, they can't form political parties, they can't do any of these other things. And so social media is this way, kind of a key way for them to express themselves. I think there's flaws in that argument, but just in the interests of balance, I think we should at least point that out.
And with regard to the criticism, Stephen, what has been the Australian government's counter-argument, if you like?
Well, Prime Minister Albanese made what I thought was a good quip in support of this. He said that this is us, his words were, "This is us taking back control." And the idea was that this was the Australian government standing up to these big tech platforms. I mean, I think all over the world, people use these big tech platforms, but there's been a kind of growth in negative sentiments about them, about, kind of resentment about them, the idea that these companies have too much power, that they are earning too much money to the detriment of other areas of the economy, and they're not distributing that money. This surveillance capitalism is a part of their business model. There have been cases where online platforms have been found to be, selling off data or spying on users in ways that they're not supposed to. And so Albanese has. We got to keep in mind that I had the privilege of going to Australia earlier this year to cover the election, and one time when I was there, one thing that I heard all the time was this phrase "nanny state." A lot of Australians felt as though the government was kind of overly intrusive. The government was over-regulating things. There were too many rules. There were too many things. The government was kind of sticking its nose in too many areas of their life, more than that they wanted them to. I won't inveigh on that. I'm not Australian. I don't have I don't think it's my place to say if that's accurate or not. But I would just say that it's not surprising to me that Australia is the first country that's trying something like this, because, as is reflected in Prime Minister Albanese's comments, this is a country where people really believe that the government ought to be taking a proactive and a strong role in not just the bare essentials of governance, but in other things. A country where people believe that government can be a force for good and a force for health and a force for safety and order in a way that you might not encounter in the rest of the English-speaking world or in a lot of other parts of the world. So at least at this point, the government seems quite confident, and they do seem to, as I mentioned that poll before, they do seem to have a kind of majority support. And I guess the other message that they might want to send is that, I haven't heard Albanese or anyone else say this, but we are talking about children, and children do not customarily enjoy all of the full rights of citizens that is conferred upon adulthood. And perhaps this is just, a kind of extension of that logic to suit this very online era that we're now in.
You're right. Chloe, in the meantime, then, what has been the response from the tech companies, from these social media platforms with regard to this particular ban?
Yeah, so many of the social media firms, even before the law was really passed, they have been spending the year very loudly protesting against this new law. So, for example, they've been claiming that the ban could actually risk making children less safe, that they argued that it was an impeachment on their rights, that there was also the question that, or would they do with the tech to be sure to reinforce this ban or where they're going to be able to do that. For example, when the law was passed, so Twitter, or previously Twitter, so X, claimed that it was also probably unlawful and that it was infringing on human rights. And more recently, the BBC got a statement from Meta, so the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, and they were saying that there is a better way, that the legislation should empower the parents to give consent or not, rather than having the government to decide which app the teens can access, which is actually what's been done in other countries as well for younger kids. So the thing is, as Stephen was saying, it's important to note that those companies, those tech companies, have been seen with a more and more negative image in the recent years, and there's been lawsuits that have claimed that they are actually the social media firms, or anyway, they would prefer to make profits over the user safety. For example, in the United States, there's been a trial recently saying that social medias are designing their apps to be addictive, so that when you open your Facebook or your TikTok app, you don't want to close it, and there is a reason behind it. It's in the way it has been designed. And there was a trial about this, which is, for some whistleblowers, is a way to show that anyway the big tech social media companies, they don't want to reduce the number of users, so that they would not be happy with this ban anyway.
Right, and perhaps with that in mind, Chloe, French President Emmanuel Macron, he has expressed support for a social ban for children, young adolescents as well. He made this very clear back in September. Could you tell us a bit more about the efforts over in France and also in Europe with regard to protecting minors from social media harm?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the idea for now is the kids who are under 15 years old, because 15 years old has been declared as the legal majority age on the net. So on internet, that's their legal age. So under that, to be able to access some of the social medias, they have to get parental consent. That's the rule currently. But Emmanuel Macron, the president, has said that he wants to change that, and he is also thinking about doing a ban, just like Australia, because according to him, the parental consent is not enough, and more should be done to protect the kids. So there's currently a bill in French Parliament that is going to go probably to vote soon, but it was only presented last month, a bit around less than a month ago, actually 3 weeks ago. And they want to ban access to social media for kids under 15 and delete all the accounts that are already existing. So that would be more than a ban. That would be, if you are under 15 years old, you can't get any account. So it's not going to be suspended. It's going to be completely deleted for now. It's still very early stages, so it's not been discussed in Parliament yet. But it's interesting to see that it was done by someone from the party of the president. And so Emmanuel Macron also said that he wants to move towards a ban, either by himself, so France itself, or what it would be better, because obviously we are part of the European Union. He said that he would like to have a movement going forward with the rest of the European Union. For now, there are a few countries that have already said that they would be also interested into the idea of a ban. That would be Greece, Spain, Ireland, Belgium, and Denmark. And the idea is that the European Union is anyway going to put in place an electronic wallet there where kids and adults and everyone will be able to put all their official documents. So that would be a good way to be able to check the identity of the kids and check their real age. Because for Australia, for example, I've only seen a few videos of kids, but some of them are saying, I did not put my legal age. So obviously, I'm not 15, but I'm pretending to be 18, and the ban is not applying to me. So that's one of the things is how they would want to do it would be through maybe this electronic wallet. And for now, Europe has only been proposing making a non-binding proposal, so nothing legal yet, but they want to harmonize the majority age for every European countries on the net and put everyone at 16 years old as the legal age, and with the possibility to start social media accounts from 13 years old with parental consent.
Right. Stephen, on a personal level, what are your thoughts regarding Australia's social ban on children? As a father, of course.
Well, as a father of a 6-year-old, I think If it were up to me, I might even take it further. I might even 18, or I might even find some, ban more online things. Like, just to share an anecdote, like a few nights ago, I was walking home. It was kind of evening, and I came across these 4 kids that were sitting on a bench outside of the subway station, and there were these 4 kids that looked like they were maybe middle school age, and they were seated right shoulder to shoulder, and all of them were just looking at their phones. They weren't looking at each other. I don't know if these kids had said, like, hey, let's all meet up and sit on a bench together and all stare at our phones. But it was just like I didn't take a photo, but it was just like a tragic thing. I am very much of the belief that childhood should be full of time spent playing outside, playing sports, reading books, drawing, painting, playing music. And I am in favor of any kind of measure that gets kids doing those things and not sitting around in a scenario where they are physically inactive, they are not interacting with other humans in a face-to-face manner, and they are subjecting their brains to a level of stimulus that the human brain is just not designed to withstand. And the last point that I would make is I would love to have a frank conversation with the owners of these platforms and the designers of these services, and I would say, tell me the truth. Do you want your children? Do you want your child on? Do you want your 14-year-old daughter looking at Instagram Reels? Do you want your 14-year-old son on X? Do you want your kids, either posting their own lives on TikTok or spending a big portion of their day comparing their own lives to lives that they are seeing on TikTok? Or would you rather they be reading a book? Or would you rather that they be playing soccer or basketball? I have a feeling I know what their answer would be.
Yeah, so do I.
I sense a lot of hypocrisy from Silicon Valley when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Chloe alluded to some of this earlier. These are profit-driven enterprises, and they're trying to increase the level of the number of users on their platform and how much those users are there and how deeply they are engaged, and they are deploying measures that are deliberately addictive and that feed into the the most primal and the most inspiring, and I don't mean that in a positive way, inspiring instincts that human beings can have. Kids are not. I don't think this is the best way to be raising a kid. As Sunny, as you mentioned, my daughter's 6, and I have no plans to get her a cell phone. I have no plans to allow her to get on social media for a wide variety of reasons. So.
Right. And Stephen, this image of 4 kids huddled together, looking into their phones, physically together, but individually on their phones. It's also an image you would see of a family at a restaurant sitting together, but all of them are looking into their phones instead of talking to each other. Very quickly, Chloe, what are your thoughts with regard to this ban?
So very quickly, I would say it's overall good to not put all the weight on the parents, because as Stephen was saying, no, he doesn't want to get a phone for his daughter, but the idea is, how do you do when they're getting older and they're kind of getting pushy because everyone else at school gets one and not them and not the social media?
I suppose it would be better to say the government says no instead of daddy says no.
It's easier to have the government do it and take this idea. The whole question is how to really apply it, because we don't know that it's hard to get real information and real identities on the internet, and that's also part of what's the big problem with kids on social media, is that internet and anonymity is going together quite a lot. And as Stephen was mentioning before, the idea of a ban could also be a way to get those kids to get through that with not the right way, not the right direction, and probably hiding it from everyone, including their parents, so that would be harder to monitor.
Right. Well, Australia's ban started today, and I believe we'll be talking more about this in the near future. All right. Chloe, as always, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right. That ends this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.
Curious about Korea?
And especially K-food? How familiar are you with Korean food? The sea on 3 sides, a mountainous terrain, and 4 distinct seasons. Thanks to these conditions, Korean cuisine bursts with diverse and unique flavors.
Do you prefer sweet or spicy?
A meat lover or a seafood connoisseur?
Can't decide?
There's got to be something here that you like.
For Koreans, rice is foundational. It's a staple and the centerpiece to all meals in Korea.